about identifying those signs and symptoms that tell you your body isn't functioning as it is. And so, welcome, Dr. Shishni Muglaya, and how are you?
Hello, Velma, and Happy New Year again. So I've just started broadcasting live again, if anyone's listening. So I'm live on Facebook, Twitter, and also on YouTube. So Happy New Year to you, and thank you for having me on your show, My Body is My Temple, on Hospital Radio Bedford. I'm really well, Velma. How are you doing?
Well, I am, what I would say, I am still kicking.
And that's what we love to hear.
I am still kicking because we have to, we have to be positive. We can't let COVID tell us how to control our lives. To the extent we can, but at the same time, we've got to be positive because, it's the positivism around us that will keep us going, just thinking about COVID all the time, to me, it doesn't, we have to be aware, but we still have to live. Isn't that so?
I 100% agree with what you've just said. So we need to remain positive. COVID is here. It's in the background. We need to continue to adhere to guidance. But at the same time, we need to be positive. We will get through this as we have done since last year and the year before. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. We're a lot more wiser. We have a lot more precautions and preventative measures. We have the vaccines and treatments available, and the situation is more contained. Less people are dying.
Yeah, and we still have to put that smile on our face. We still have to laugh. We still have to have faith. We still have to have hope. We still have to have that sense of belonging. COVID has created a feeling that we don't belong. We do belong. So let's now go in and talk about our body, because my program, as you know, it's called Your Body is Your Temple. And how we look after it and what we do is important. So, feeling our body to us. Your body needs nutrition. Stomach belly. So, triggers that tells us something isn't right.
Very good question, Velma. And I think when we experience mental health problems, people think it's just something that's mental, something that's in your head or your brain, and something that gets triggered off. And that's correct. It is something that we do think that affects not just our mind and our brain, but also our body. Because as you know, our body and mind is linked. So for example, I'll use a physical health example. We use examples like diabetes or headaches. So for example, if you have a headache or if you are stressed out in the day, that's a mental condition. That's a mental health situation where you're thinking that you're quite stressed, and that can be converted into a headache, so you can experience a physical symptom. So that's where where the mind and body is so closely linked. So whatever happens to the mind affects the body and vice versa, and therefore we need to understand mental health in terms of not just keeping ourselves mentally healthy and well, but also physically healthy and well, because it can work that it can affect both. So there's lots of signs and symptoms. If you want to ask me any other questions, and I can go through them one by one.
Well, I think the important thing is that we need to recognize those signs and symptoms, that saying to our body, you're not looking after. For example, if you're not drinking enough water, we know your blood, it affects your blood pressure. What else? So it's for us to understand and take time to listen to our bodies, because our bodies actually tells us when things are not right. And so when you're feeling in the blues, what are those signs and symptoms that's telling you psychologically, you may be going through a bit of a depression. So what are those signs and symptoms?
Exactly. So yes, so when we're going through those blues, or when we're going through something we call depression, as Valma's just mentioned, depression is where we experience symptoms of sadness and low mood for at least two or more weeks. And the symptoms, usually the biological symptoms, which is with our body. And what happens is we start to maybe eat or eat more, or we might eat less. We might we might pick on weight, we might lose weight, we also might sleep more or less. So some people might have insomnia or hypersomnia. The other biological symptoms, people will feel really tired, fatigue, and also might start isolating themselves. So apart from the low mood, they will have some of these symptoms. Then the mental health, those are the physical symptoms. So looking at the mental health symptoms that people might experience is where they start to feel low, they'll feel negative about the world and themselves. So very pessimistic view of the future, feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, and worthlessness. If the depression continues, they might become more lonely and isolated, as I said, more negative thinking. Their concentration will go down. Sometimes it might affect their memory, their motivation to do things. Just to get up in the morning might be such an effort. So these are the main mental health symptoms that people might experience, or the cognitive symptoms, and also emotional, and then the physical symptoms, as I said. So it's obviously something which people can identify and relate to when they have depression. You know, a lot of people, Velma, when you speak to them when they're depressed, they might just describe their mood as being quite low and sad, and might be tearful. And eventually, if it does become worse, if it doesn't get treated with either medication, psychology like CBT, or social support, then what can happen is that they can end up having more negative thoughts and start becoming suicidal, and maybe then coping with either self-harming, cutting themselves, taking overdoses. Some might successfully commit suicide, unfortunately. So it can be quite serious, you know, not to alarm people. People might also attempt to use substances like illicit substances like cannabis, cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, amphetamines, or any illegal highs. They might also cope with alcohol. So, or others might cope in other ways. So there's different ways in which people will cope that can also become addictive. So it's a good idea to find out, you know, and identify what symptoms and signs of depression you're experiencing, and then speak to someone that's trained and get help. So we can talk about that as well in a bit.
Okay. The other thing is that, you know, some people don't want to depend on medication. I mean, there are, you know, foods that can, you know, pop up your serotonin and your endorphin. So what are those sort of natural things that people can turn to when, you know, their depression isn't to the extent that they actually need medication? So probably going out for a walk, getting some fresh air, you know, berries. What are some of the natural things that people can do before, you know, they advance to medication? Particularly for those who don't necessarily feel comfortable with taking medication.
Yes, so before we start that, I just want to talk about the forms of depression. It can be mild, moderate, severe. So mild, people might just experience mild symptoms where they might not need medication, and they might just need a combination of CBT or psychological therapy and social support, you know, maybe contact with a charity organization like Mind or Samaritans. So there's lots of charity support. The second thing is, if it's more moderate to severe, it's a combination according to the NICE guidance that we follow, National Institute of Clinical Excellence. So it's a combination of medications like antidepressant medication, which takes about 2 weeks to have effect. And like all medications, they will have some side effects. And that boosts the serotonin, as Velma was mentioning, the happy chemical in our body. And we'll talk about alternative ways of boosting that with foods, eating foods, and exercising. And then in terms of social support, as I mentioned, contacting charity organizations, mental health teams that have support, crisis teams, Samaritans, mind.org. So there's a wealth of information online, and even leaflets that people can read if they are going through a depression or they need support. They can have a look at the Royal College of Psychiatrists website at www.rcpsych.ac.uk. So it's a holistic approach, Velma, and as you were asking about not just medication, looking at other supports.
Yeah, I've come across a article about beautiful berries, and it says blackcurrant offer 4 times the amount of vitamin C as an equivalent weight of oranges. It also go on to red currant, a strengthener of the immune system and a cooler of fevers when drank as a juice. Gooseberries, a boom for constipation issues, including gooseberries in your diet, is one way to build up the strength of your natural immunity. Strawberries, cherries, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries. You know, there's so much natural foods out there to build your immunity, but also to heighten up that feeling of well-being, such as, you know, increasing your serotonin. The other thing also, Shifney, we need to talk about, and I think it's quite important, there are individuals who suffer from mental health, such as psychosis and so forth. And there are family members who are involved in supporting them, such as informed unpaid carers, you know, the relatives, the friends, the husband, the wife, the lover, or whatever. But they can sometimes be a source of recognizing when somebody's health is deteriorating, particularly when somebody, you know, who may be suffering, be diagnosed with schizophrenia or other conditions.
Yeah.
But you can recognize those symptoms.
Yeah.
So what should a carer or family member look out for that they, you know, that person's health, is mental health is maybe deteriorating, and we have to get in there before it becomes a crisis?
Yes, a very important question. So a lot of the times people themselves, when they're going through mental health difficulties, they might not be able to identify that they are experiencing any difficulties, or they might be reluctant to get any help. It's very hard sometimes for people to ask for help. So it's usually our loved ones, people around us, our friends, our family, our colleagues, who might sense that there's something going on with you. So what can happen is that they might be able to look at the telltale signs. As I said earlier, they might notice that you might be more withdrawn, more isolated. You might not be as social as before. You might have some sleep disturbance, weight difficulties, not eating or overeating, and other symptoms like maybe some irritability, anger, and signs that you are not taking care of yourself, and not concentrating and not able to do things that you usually would be able to do. So, and sometimes people might even express thoughts, you know, that I'm feeling so down, I'm feeling low. They might become tearful. So these are all the telltale signs that you might see in your loved one. And if you do see these signs and symptoms, as a carer, it's really important that we need to get help for our loved ones, you know, or even a colleague or a friend, or someone that, if you're working like in a school, you know, if it's a student or child, that you can see there's something not right, or if you're working in a hospital or any other institutions and professionals or non-professionals, where you can identify there's something not right and this person might need help. So I think what the first thing would be is try and speak to that person confidentially, make sure that they can trust you with whatever information they're giving. However, if you feel that the person needs further help, ask them whether you can help them with getting that help, or try and signpost them to some organizations or GP practices, health practitioners, or any sort of counseling services like IAPT and Mind, where they can get help. So it's a good idea to just listen, be confidential with information, try and show them some support, get them some numbers, and offer them help to even, you know, go with them for the appointment, or speak to a relative or someone that's close to them that can help.
Yeah, but Shishni, there's other signs and symptoms. You know, somebody who may be suffering from schizophrenia or other mental health might actually have hallucinations, or they may become, as you said, irritable, but may lead to violence. Because they can't cope.
Yeah.
What about people that suffer from autism? You know, who cannot communicate their pain or recognize their pain, and sometimes might, start getting aggressive. So there's so many signs that a carer can identify and nip it, and try nip it in the bud before that person, becomes in a crisis state where they need to be admitted to hospital. Because family members or friends are so important in being able to identify those symptoms, because, as you know, sometimes individuals end up in mental health hospitals just because somebody didn't recognise that there was a deterioration in their psychological and physical well-being.
That's really important, Velma, the way you narrated that, because that's typically what we see in the hospitals. So that's where we come in as health professionals. So apart from what I said is getting help with either your GP, your health practitioner, if someone is known with an underlying mental health condition like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, panic attacks, OCD, bipolar affective disorder, schizophrenia, any type of these mental health or addiction problems, eating disorders, dementias, and old age conditions, then what we need to do is we need to ensure that that person, if you are the loved one or if you are someone that is having any of these conditions, you need to ensure that you are being supported by the community mental health teams. So all the counties and districts in the UK will have different mental health teams, community mental health teams. So we might have the crisis team for acute emergencies, and then we have the CMHTs, which is the community mental health team with a whole team of people. So like for me, I work with a team of people, psychologists. It's not just a psychiatrist, it's a nurses, healthcare assistants, social workers like yourself, Elma, physios, occupational therapy, dietitians, speech and language therapists, so vocational teachers. So there's a whole lot of people that are in the team, and they can support someone. So we need to ensure that that person, if it's you or if you've got a loved one that has a mental health condition, they need to be part of a mental health team. Find out about getting referred to your GP if you don't form part of a team already.
Yeah.
Ensure that you're taking your medication, and ensure that you are offered the holistic interventions, like not just medication, but looking at psychological counseling, CBT, psychoeducation, family therapy, and also social interventions of support like one-to-one groups.
Yeah.
And
Yes. The other thing is, a lot of, I know in the UK that we have what we call social prescription, where you go along to your GP, and instead of them prescribing you with medication, you can sort of say, look, I'd like to go and have a bit of massage, or I'd like a bit of reflexology, or I'd like to be able to get some books that I can read about self-healing, or going to the gym. So, there's some of the opportunities that individuals can access. But the social network is so important for individuals. Just being able to have somebody to talk to, even somebody picking up the phone and just saying, how are you? Having a conversation, social network. When I say social network, the family members, friends, having somebody so you don't feel isolated and feel that you're alone. And in fact, we're not alone, I don't know how spiritual individuals are out there, but, we're not alone. And people keep thinking that we're alone. Just take time. Just take time for yourself. Take time for your body. Take time to talk. Take time to reach out. Hold somebody's hand. Telephone. A letter.
I love that. I love what you've just said. It's about, and you're the expert as a social worker about connecting and having that social support. It's so important. Velma, all people want to have, as you said, is just someone to listen to them. If you pick up the phone, if you can make someone smile, offer them a compliment, offer some help, by maybe just going for a walk, helping them with some chores or getting some meals. We need to be more kind, and that's what COVID-19 has taught us. And we need to continue with the momentum of helping out, being kind, showing love and compassion to other people. And like you said, it's about social prescription. I do believe in social prescription. So it's a holistic approach, medication, psychology, social, but it's looking at alternative therapies as well. So whatever other therapies, looking at exercise, exercise, keeping your body and mind healthy is absolutely important. And I'm a firm believer of that, because I believe that when you exercise, the serotonin is released, and that's the natural feel-good chemical that can boost your mood. So you don't need to be taking, other things if you don't need don't need it. You can actually just exercise and you can feel happy. But obviously, if people do need antidepressant medication or medications, then we need to prescribe it. But and you spoke about berries earlier on. So those are brain berries. As you know, I do the Happy Doctor's Kitchen, and I'm a firm believer in that you are what you eat. So, like Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food. And you need to think about incorporating foods that are happy and healthy. And I've got a long list, which I can share at some point. But berries is a simple examples. Berries and nuts, very, very good for the brain. That's why they call brain berries. The walnuts look like a
Yeah.
brain. So, yeah.
But also, Shishni, we know that self-talk is important. We know that what you say about yourself, having that positive word about yourself, I feel good, I love myself, having those positive words with conversations you're having with other people in terms of saying to somebody, you look good, how are you? Just saying just those positive conversations can create that sense of well-being, because it's what we think about ourselves can also be very damaging to our immune system.
Exactly. And I think self-talk, self-love, I think that's going to be the year for 2022. It's about self-love, self-care, and about kindness. I think that's what we're going to see more and more of in 2022. And I think that should be everyone's sort of mantra or go-to, as you said, just speaking positive words, affirmations, self-talk, self-love, self-care, offering compliments to people. I'm always offering compliments to people. And, it's a compliment that's deserved. So I'm not sure why people are reluctant to offer compliments and praise, because when you offer that, as you said, your immune system changes. You start to see people react, people smile, then they start thinking about it. Oh, that person gave me a compliment, and then they start to believe it, and they should, because it's true. I complimented one of the nurses about their hair the other day, and I said, because she looked lovely, and she did look lovely. So, and when people get those compliments, sometimes they're reluctant to even accept it because they don't often get it. So I think we need to move from a culture of negativity and complaining to more positivity and more compliments, and complimenting each other, praising each other, and showing gratitude. I mean, apart from everything that I've advised, few things that I can advise is gratitude, mindfulness, meditation, eating happy and healthy, being positive, taking walks in nature and grounding yourself, drinking plenty of water, and enjoying whatever sunshine, music, and laughter in terms of comedy shows or movies.
Other things, sorry for interrupting you, other things that can help, because the last 2 years, we haven't been able to hug each other, embrace each other physically, self-hug, just put your hands around yourself, squeeze your body and say, I love me, and then shake it out to the world, because that vibration, that positive vibration that you can create around you can also be sent to others.
I love that. There is evidence actually that 5 hugs a day. There's evidence from a world research which shows that hugging definitely stimulates the happy chemicals in our body and our brain, and keeps us happy and healthy. And I try as much as possible to hug the people in my household. This morning I did that with my kids and my husband. So it's really important. I miss hugging people. I'm one of those people that love hugs.
Also about hugging yourself,
Exactly.
You can hug yourself and create the same energy field.
Yes, I know. And I think with COVID, it's been difficult. But I think, like what you're saying, Valma, it's about really thinking about, using all our different senses, practicing mindfulness, practicing self-love and self-care, being positive, and believing that 2022 is going to be a better year. And as you said earlier, what was really important, sorry, Valma, is that we are not alone. We are not alone.
So we just need to send a lot of love to everybody out there.
Yes.
Because loving yourself means you can love everybody else.
I love that.
Like to thank you so much, Shishni, for taking time today for us to have this beautiful conversation about feeling good, making yourself feel good, irrespective of what's going around you. Don't allow this thing called COVID to stop you in your passage in feeling good. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, Velma, for having me. It's always a pleasure. There's so much more advice that I've got, so much more tips of health and well-being.
Yeah, we will continue talking about self-love, self-healing, because your body is your temple.
I love it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So
have
much.
a fantastic beginning of
you
2022.
You will be back again, because this self-healing is so important.
Thank you, Velma. Lots of love to you and everyone else. And thank you so much. Namaste.
Okay.
Thank you, Velma, for having me on your show. And I hope everyone enjoyed that talk. It was absolutely inspiring. Do tune into Velma's show, My Body's My Temple. I will put a link in on my Facebook page. If anyone's listening, Velma's got a great show. She's done a book on appraisal, self-appraisal. I've read it and I've recommended it on my Amazon review. So do have a look at her book and try and listen to her shows. She's helped a lot of people, lots of carers as a social worker and as a presenter, radio presenter on different radios, on Hospital Radio Bedford and AUK. She's helped a lot of people as well. And she's very, very involved in working with people with autism specifically and learning disabilities. So anyone's listening that wants information, do have a look at my Facebook and try and get in contact with Velma James, and I'll pop her details on at some point today. Thank you. Have a fantastic day and namaste, everyone. Lots of love from me and everyone here. Goodbye.